Hey, Mark Masterson.
James McNeil, how are you
I'm
today?
doing very well. It's Friday. It's 1 o'clock. It's now our regular weekly series, CT Live, and I think this is good. I think we've only spoken twice so far today, so this will be our third time of talking of our very regular communication, but doing it live for all the people, which is great. So welcome everybody to City Theater now in our digital space where we've been inhabiting. Mark, now I think this was week 6 of the stay-at-home mandate here in Pennsylvania
It's a
that we've
blur
just
to me,
wrapped up
James. One day at a time. That's
one
all we
day
can
at a
do.
time. But we've been coming back every Friday and talking live with some of our artists, and we have a terrific little lineup today coming up. But of course, twice a week, we've been delivering different digital content, and we continue to have some wonderful things provided on our social channels, and go to our YouTube page to see all of those things as well. Um, a couple of things just want to mention before we get started with the conversation. One thing that's been going on and what we launched this week, earlier this week, Mark, you along with Bridget and Betty and Claire and some of the terrific folks involved with Perk Up had a community town hall where we really got into that show in I think a really profound and deep way. Do you want to sort of give a little recap of what that conversation was and what it meant
Yeah,
to you?
sure. And, I mean, one of my thoughts right now is that in this time of social isolation, that has more meaning now than ever. And we're all sort of socially distanced, but craving connection. And so what we did was to gather with our community partners that we had built around the production of Perk Up Per Cup. And we had a conversation about race in America, about race in Pittsburgh, about the issues that the play brings up, the dynamics of making art in an environment that was swiftly changing around us, and how do we amplify those messages? And of course, the issues of equity and race and equality um, matter now more than ever, and it's playing out in the daily sphere. You see the impact of this pandemic on people of color that's being amplified and tragically realized, and many other aspects of the way that our country and our culture is reflecting in this moment, that the issues that the play deals with are more relevant than ever.
Yeah, I threatened I might go off script, but I'm actually going to go off script a little bit because there's something that's been rattling around in my head, thinking about our own field and theater, and in a play like Perk Up, and those things that you were just talking about how this pandemic has not been very equitable, in terms of the response, and certain communities have certainly suffered more than others. But I think about our own field, and what that will look like, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, but one of the things that I've been thinking about is the type of programming that will come out of this. And, will theaters sort of be shaken to their core and be less willing to take a risk on new work, on our plays that might push the envelope a little bit? And I know that in our conversations, we're never going to sort of waver from that. But I'm wondering if you've been thinking about what the programming landscape might look like for the American theater when this does pass and we get back to quote unquote normal.
The truth is we just don't know. And I remember after September 11th happened, I was running Actors Theater of Louisville at the time, and there was a lot of conversation in the national media about how the world would never be the same and we would never relate to each other in the same. And remember the whole thing about the death of irony,
Yeah.
and that somehow it was impossible to be ironic anymore. And of course, that proved not to be true. So I think the assumptions that we make now in this moment, we should take them a little bit with a grain of salt. People are still going to need to gather. They're going to want to share stories. Those stories will be wide ranging. And it's not that we're all going to just suddenly reach a point where only musicals matter or only a particular kind of thing matters. The communities that care about these things haven't gone away. At the same time, I do think that the way artists are responding to this, the way we're all responding to this, using platforms like this, for example, which we never would have done before, is opening up new means of expression and new ways of connecting. And some of that will be with us still, I suspect. Um, and the realities of kind of coming back, how we come back safely, how we gather again. There's a human need to do that, but we need to figure out how we can do that and protect the health and safety of not only our employees and the artists who are involved, but also, of course, our audience. Everyone needs to be coming back together in a safe way when we're able to do that.
It's talking about the post 9/11, and there was some extraordinary art. I was in the literature field more then, and some incredible books that came out in the years subsequent to that, and amazing expressions of creativity. One show I comes to mind is Omnium Gatherum, which I know you were involved with down at Actors Theater of Louisville, Tris Rebeck's piece, which still sits with me today as an extraordinary expression of that moment. A couple other things I just want to mention before we really get into sort of having a conversation about a couple of things. One, on our platforms right now, we have an excerpt read by the playwright, Corey Thomas, from her play Lockdown, which was at Rattlestick, I believe, last season. We all remember Corey Thomas. Her most recent work at City Theater was Citizens Market, which I believe was in 2018. Nikki or Claire will correct me if I got that year wrong, which was a world premiere on our main stage. So we're thrilled to have Corey read a little bit of her terrific piece. So please do check that out on the channels. And also a reminder that this is a last chance. Today is Friday to submit to the In Their Own Voices opportunity that we're partnering with the Drama to Skill chapter here in Pittsburgh. 5-page sample. I'm sure that the information on that is being shared as well in the chat. So please do, if you're a local playwright and want to participate in that, please do submit today for In Their Own Voices. Going to something you were just talking about a little bit, Mark, and one of the things that we are hard at work really figuring out what when we do come back and how it is we're going to need to operate and what changes will have to be in place. I am actually pretty optimistic in some ways. I mean, a lot can change. But here in Western PA, we've been hearing early signs that we've been very fortunate in this part of the country about how the stay-at-home orders has really helped with helping with the curve and flattening that. And so there's been talk now of reopening soon. Obviously, the stay-at-home did get extended to May 8th at this point, but there does seem to be a plan being laid out by the governor to allow business to begin that slow process of returning to normal, whatever that means. But that doesn't necessarily mean people will be coming right back to the theaters, and we know that. We've been looking at various studies out there. I think one that might be shared right now has been updated every couple of weeks by Colleen Deilenschneider, and really is surveying audience members about when they will feel comfortable coming back to a performing arts venue, a festival, any sort of publicly gathering area. And so we've been talking a lot about that. And I think this would be a great time. We'd love to hear from our audience about what it will take for them to feel good about coming back, when they feel that they'll be ready to come back and consume art. We've heard from a lot of patrons that they're ready to go right now, but so please do share that. We'll be surveying our audience as well. We want to hear what sort of things we need to put into place to make people feel safe. But Mark, I wonder if you've had some thoughts about what that looks like and what we need to do as a public assembly space for our public.
Well, I think there are multiple layers of this, and we're, as you know, James, in the process of our own planning for when we come back as a business before we open to the public. How do our employees work safely, and can we continue to work from home for those of us that can do that? But then there are certain things that need to be done at the theater, and so we have developed protocols for how that can happen, and in order to keep our employees safe. And then thinking farther ahead, once we do reopen, there are a variety of different things, from cleaning products everywhere and managing lines and distancing within our building, but also perhaps reducing our capacity so that there's more space between people in the theater itself. And the possibility of live streaming some of our performances simultaneously so that people have a choice. They can either come to our space if they're comfortable with that, and we have provided a safe and secure way for them to encounter in our building. But not everyone is going to feel comfortable with that. So can we continue to provide digital content of live stream, 3-camera, high quality video of the live performances for people who aren't ready for whatever reason, or maybe they're not feeling well and they just don't want to take a risk, or whatever the reasons may be, that we can continue to fulfill our mission and be out in the community, building community, and gradually come back in stages that way. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're hoping to do in the fall, if we're allowed to do that. And then, for us to just all remain flexible and supportive of each other. I know you feel this way, James, but I'm just inspired by how many of our patrons have reached out to us in this time and offered their support, both financially and just spiritually and emotionally, to say that City Theater matters to them and they want to be part of our future, and they're encouraging us to hang in there. And that means everything to us, because it is about community ultimately, and how we share our common experience through the medium of theater and performance. And so to know that our audience is there for us is very, very meaningful.
I 100% of course agree, and I would be remiss, and Nikki and Joel would certainly shout at me if I didn't do this, but thank you to all of our subscribers who have been renewing. Last week we talked about this a little bit, and but every Thursday we're checking the mail once a week, and it's just so wonderful that last week we had 60 envelopes in the mail with subscription renewals. I think we had another 50 yesterday, and it's just great to have that commitment from our audience. And so if you are a current subscriber, please, there's information in your inbox as well as on our website about how you renew for next year. It really is the best way to sort of stay connected with us as we plot our return when the authorities and when the moment is right for us to return. And echo what you're saying, Mark, and just so grateful for all of those wonderful things that have been said from our audience. We miss everyone incredibly. I'm actually now going to sort of hand the reins over to you, Mark, to get into our artist chat. But again, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and for continuing to be with City Theater during this. We are with our community, and we look forward to opening our red doors to you all very, very soon. So Mark, the stage is yours.
Thank you, James. And I am so excited to welcome Jill Sobule to CT Live. Jill, as you know, is the writer of Fuck Seventh Grade, which was to be the final show of this current season and has been postponed, and will instead be the first thing that we start with when we're able to reopen. So we're excited about that. We're looking forward. We have all of our plans in place. And Jill, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
I'm so glad. At least I was supposed to be there right now.
I know we would be rehearsing at this very moment, but instead we're on a Zoom call. So,
So
what are we
bizarre.
gonna do?
It's so strange. But on the other hand, I have something to look forward to in this madness and malaise. I'm so grateful that you guys are committed to it, and I have something to look forward to. So that's something.
We all do, Jill. I mean, we believe in you and we believe in this project. And, I've known you for a long time. And I remember your play, was it called Prozac and
Platypus?
The Platypus, which I don't know if you know this, but I came very close to producing that play at the Actors Theater of Louisville. I loved it. And you have a bunch of fans, at that time. And that's how I really first got to know you. I knew your music, but I didn't really know you at that time. And so you've been making your career as a singer-songwriter for a very long time, but also dabbling in the theater over a couple of decades, I know.
Well, dabbling, but this would have been the first one that I was actually in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you know what the last time before that I was on the stage as a star of the theater was I played Miss Hanukkah in 6th grade at Carson Elementary School.
Well, but on the other hand, you've been performing your whole life, really. I mean, you know, since
That
you were
is
10.
that is true, and I am playing myself. I'm not doing Shakespeare,
Yeah.
so I know that person. So yeah, I've been performing for forever, and I'm not stopping. You know, I'm playing actually more than I have late in the last few weeks, doing lots of concerts on Zoom and Facebook Live and Instagram Live. It's been kind of an amazing thing that there's people that have been able to see me who have never really seen me live. They're in Japan or they're in places I don't usually play, like Oklahoma, and so it's uh, it's been great.
You know,
I mean,
I've said this,
considering.
I said this before, but I think it's worth repeating that, you know, the will of an artist to continue to create is very strong, and art will survive. What is a danger here, and what we're concerned about, is that artists aren't being paid for this work. I mean, if you're out there doing a concert on Zoom or joining us for this medium today, it's not financially supporting you directly right now, and that's the concern, is that we find a way to get back online performing so that artists can continue to make a living doing this work.
And also all the people that we work with,
That's right.
the bar backs, the waitresses, the lightmen, all the people that work at your theater. So that is, you know, I can always play a show, and there's apps for people for tipping you, or your house concerts. But it's so the artist is having a problem, but it's also the people that are important that are supporting the artist that
Right, right.
that I'm really all concerned about. So.
So let's talk about seventh grade and where it came from for you, and what the impetus for it was. I know a little bit of this story, but I'd just like to hear you tell the story about how you came to write this piece.
Well, I'm trying to remember, and maybe Claire can also pipe in. But as a songwriter, I'm of the storytelling type, more than a pop writer. And I guess there's a lot of songs that I had already that were about that period of growing up, that junior high school period, which I think was life will never be as bad than that. Can you imagine going through this in seventh grade? Um,
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, well, there's a lot of families at home with seventh graders right now
that's
who are, you know, experiencing the joy of adolescence directly now, every
and
day, all day.
stuck with their parents and siblings. Um, so, and also it was growing up in the 70s, and also growing up with, wondering about my sexuality. And at that time, that was something that you had to keep secret. There was no role models I didn't know anything about. So that added to you know, the anxiety, and as we grow older, we forget a lot, and our memories get further away. But there's that period of time that I feel like I remember everything. and so I'm trying to remember I how it went. I think it was a few people were saying, you've got these, you're a performer. When I perform, I also talk about my songs, and I tell stories about them before I play them. And they thought, well, what about taking what you do and making it into more of a theatrical event? And so that was the impetus for it, was figuring out what I already do, and making it a piece for the theater. So
Well, and it evolved over time, right? Because, you know, at first it was a song cycle, and then we brought Liza in as a writer to
and
contribute, you know, some text that holds the songs together and tells your story not only through you, but the other band members. Actually, originally it was going to be just you, then we made a decision to add a few more players and personalities on the stage, right?
And it adds so much. And working with Liza was, we hit it off right away, because it's a very odd thing to be, here's an intimate part of my life, and working with someone at first that I didn't know who she was. I knew she was a great writer. And we hit it off right away, and I felt comfortable right away. And there were times we would sit and she would just record me on her iPhone, just telling stories of that time. And the way that she worked with that text and made her own versions of it, and brought in the other two characters was.
And then the scope of it also grew, because it, at first it was about being a seventh grader, and then it also became about coming into your own as, your own sexuality, but your own as an artist as well, right?
Right. I think it grew from that into the time when I first found some success, and the 1995 hit, I Kissed a Girl, and how I dealt with that and the ups and downs. And I think the overriding thing is that maybe we never really get over seventh grade, but we somehow, as we get older, we just deal with it. We deal with it. And maybe the things that were upsetting to us, that we dealt with it, that's what makes us artists today. That's who we are today, for better or worse. And I think for better. So,
yeah,
so it's kind of the thread that runs through it.
It's a really wonderful, exciting piece, and we can't wait to share it with our audiences and to get back in a room together and make some art with you. I know you've been continuing to write and record and make art, and I'm wondering if I can convince you to share a little bit about what you've been working on recently. I know your guitar is sitting there beside you. Would you feel like sharing a little bit?
Well, my guitar is, well, I'm going to ask you. Here I have, I've been doing my series of pandemic songs, and one of them is one that we actually do as an encore for seventh grade.
Yeah. Whatever you feel like sharing in whatever form is fine with me. I'm excited to hear what you've been doing.
Or would you rather hear, that's kind of a more topical political song? You pick.
Topical political, how about that?
Okay, I'm getting the lyrics. Okay, I'm getting the lyrics right now. Okay, here's a song that, where is it? Lips. Hold on, I'm gonna get it for you.
Yeah, we heard a couple of these last week. We had a rehearsal the day that was supposed to be our first day of rehearsal. We all gathered together on a Zoom chat and had a little celebration. I think we were drinking tequila shots, and maybe you were in California, so it was probably like 1 p.m. when we were drinking tequila shots.
So fantastic.
But at that point, you sang a couple of songs for us, and that was the inspiration for asking you to do something with us today. If you can't find it, that's okay.
I can't find it. I'm going to sing another song right here. And this, to me, is the perfect pandemic song. And it's also in seventh grade. Tomorrow the ground may shake, like they said it was bound to happen one day, and the Hollywood sign will fall, the final call. Don't you fret and don't be blue. You had me and I had you. It was a good life. It was a good life. Tomorrow we could all be gone. With the rush come roaring from the sea. 100-foot swells over Venice Beach. Don't be scared, take my hand. We'll swim into the promised land. It was a good life. It was a good, good life. It was a good life. It was a good, good life. Tomorrow a tiny cell might grow in everyone, and it's not the cold or a hole in the sky will open wide. The aliens land on the 105. If it comes to that, what can we do? You had me and I had you. It was a good life. It was a good, good life. It was a good life. It was a good, good life. I said a boom, boom, crash, crash underneath the overpass. Burning buildings, flying glass. A good life. On the day the earth stood still, we won't have to pay our bills. The mud slides down the hill. A good life. We won't have to make our beds. Break out the booze, and like I said, let's have a ball before we're dead. A good life. Let the pious rise above. We'll go down in our sweet love. It was a good, good, and everybody sings. Let's sing It Is a Good Life, just for the heck of it. It is a good life. It is a good, good life. It is a good life. It is a good, good life.
Yay.
Yay!
Jill, love you so much. Thank you for sharing
I love
that.
you guys so much. I can't wait to come. I was looking so forward to being in Pittsburgh for a couple months, and it seemed, but like I said, I can't wait, and I've got something so forward to looking forward to so much.
So are we, Jill. Thank you for joining us today. It's really terrific. And
Thank
it
you,
is a good
guys.
life indeed. I hope I had my mic muted while I was singing along.
No, but I did like the snaps.
All right. Thank you, Jill. We're going to bring on Nikki to talk about this week's good news. And we have some fun things to share. There she is. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Jill. It is impossible not to sing along and dance along with that song. I'm over here bopping. Like, luckily you can't see me while I'm dancing in the background, but thank you for sharing that with us. All right.
It's a cacophony.
So today on Things We Love, we want to highlight one of our partners, One Hood Media, has been doing a video series on Facebook every week called What Black Pittsburgh Needs to Know About COVID-19. So we're going to post the link for that so you can see the work that they're doing. They're doing all kinds of really cool stuff during this time. They are donating masks to essential workers. They're doing a virtual poetry slam. So we'll share that link with you. Head on over to their Facebook and see the cool work that they're doing.